Is it on? Yeah. Can we turn it off? It's really like the hardest act to follow, shall we say. What are the receptions? Hopefully everybody's wined and dined and ready for a nap. Just kidding, no napping. No, you won't. Leave them at home. Yeah, come on. I'm setting up for myself. All right, I feel like that a natural quiet has come upon us in the room, so that's a good cue to start. Good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon after already a busy morning. It's really a joy to see you all here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carly Seshadri. I'm officer in charge of the External Relations and International Cooperation team here at the CTBTO. As you like, since this is the first session after the high-level opening, I have the pleasure to start with a few administrative notes. As you likely know, tomorrow's program features a trip to Cybersdorf. Space is limited and registration in advance was required. If you've signed up for the trip, you should have received an email yesterday, either confirming your participation or informing you that you are on a wait list. If you were not able to get a seat, rest assured we will have some elements of the program here at the VIC tomorrow. If you were able to get a seat but are no longer able to attend, please do let us know so we can assign your seat to somebody else. As for the program for tomorrow, we have a sort of modular trimmed down program. So we're offering another round of tours for the facilities here at HQ. If you're interested in that and have not yet signed up, please, there are sign-up sheets over there. In addition, we will have a truly interesting communications workshop organized on combating misinformation to advance the CTBT. It will be presented by renowned author Dr. David Grimes. No advanced registration is required for that element of the program. It will take place right here in Boardroom D at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I hope to see many of you there. Finally, if you would like to qualify for a certificate of completion for the SDS, please note you must log your participation in 5 of the 8 sessions of the educational segment of it. So basically any of the sessions after this one, including this one, you sign up over there, your participation, you just register with your name and your email address. And then if you attend 5, you'll qualify for a certificate of completion if you're interested. Okay, now I can turn to the substance, and I'd like to start with a video, please. Great. I hope you enjoyed that sort of inspirational video to start off this panel. As the ES mentioned this morning, what sets the symposium aside from other events is the diversity of the audience. Basically, you. And we know that for many of you, whether you're a policymaker in capital, a diplomat in a permanent mission here in Vienna, or Brussels, Geneva, New York, or a technical expert at an NDC somewhere in your home country, the CTBTO may be just one small part of your job. And for that reason, you may know some aspects of the treaty or our work really well, but you may not have the full picture. For this reason, we thought we would start off the educational segment of the symposium with this panel entitled The Political and Legal Aspects of the Treaty. It's meant to kick off the segment with some of the basics, to establish a common baseline so that everyone can move forward with the rest of the program with the same common level of knowledge. To do this, we've assembled an excellent panel. We will first hear from Mr. Jean Dupuy, Senior Scholar at Center for Nonproliferation Studies, CNS, who will set the scene for us. We will then hear from 3 members of the PTS. There have been some changes, unfortunately, to those who were identified in the program, but we're very happy to welcome Mr. Dominic Zimmerman, Senior Legal Officer in the Legal Service Section, Dr. Yakovos Georgiou, Secretary of Working Group B and the Advisory Group, as well as Sabine Bauer, Special Assistant in the Office of the Executive Secretary. So we will first have remarks from each of our panelists, and then a moderated discussion, and then open the floor for questions from the audience. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Jean. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm really privileged to be here, and I'd like to thank the Executive Secretary and the staff, especially my former colleagues in the External Relations Division. I was privileged to work for the organization some years ago, and I must say, having listened to the inspiring words this morning, I came to the conclusion that this is a new organization. There's so much inspiring things going on, and I would like to congratulate the Executive Secretary and his staff for a fantastic job done. I also want to acknowledge the hard work that it takes to put an event like this together. You are all here as guests of the CTBTO, and you are here to learn and to enjoy the company, but you have to realize that behind the scenes is a group of people that have worked weeks, if not months, to put this together. As someone who managed the first one of these events years ago, I do appreciate the work. And so if you see the Secretariat and the team that worked on this, please do thank them. I was asked to kind of set the scene and look at a bit of the history. Why are we here? Why is there a CTBT? What is the role of this treaty in international security? And kind of look at some of the challenges and opportunities. When former President Bill Clinton announced to the General Assembly in 1993 that the United States is ready to negotiate a comprehensive nuclear test ban, he stated that such a treaty would greatly strengthen US and global security and create another barrier to nuclear proliferation and nuclear weapons development. A mere 3 years later, on September 24th, 1996, President Clinton was the first to sign the CTBT. And in doing so, he described the treaty as the longest sought, hardest fought prize in arms control history. These prophetic words still ring true. But this hard-fought prize can still not be collected. 26 years and counting after that memorable day, the CTBT is still not in force. Yet, it represents a powerful international norm against nuclear testing. This symposium serves not only as a celebration of the CTBT and its opening for signature, as well as those who have already signed and ratified, but it is also a wake-up call that time for the treaty might be running out. You may be rightly ask, how can a treaty that's not yet in force be a powerful norm against nuclear testing? Guys, we need some help. There you go. The nuclear era started on 16th of July, 1945 in the Alamogordo Desert in New Mexico in the United States, when the US detonated the very first atomic explosion. Following the devastating use of nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, other nuclear weapon powers followed suit. By 1996, the United States, the Soviet Union, and later Russia, France, the United Kingdom, and China combined detonated 2,047 nuclear tests. For 50 years, on average, one nuclear explosion every 9 days were detonated. These explosions were held underground, above ground, in the atmosphere, and underwater, with devastating effects on human health and the environment. Nuclear tests signal the nuclear capability of all but 2 states that have actively developed nuclear weapons. These weapons and the test are indicative of the arms race of the Cold War. And they range from the smallest weapon tested, a 0.0 kiloton US nuclear bazooka, to the massive 57 megaton Soviet Tsar bomb. On the slide, you can see the colored picture on the top is the plume of that bomb, and the tiny little nuclear bazooka is in the bottom. I always tell my students when we talk about this that that bazooka had a range of 2 kilometers. So the poor fellow firing it was on a suicide mission. The oddest tests that were conducted were those for peaceful applications, such as excavation and cavity formation. Allowed by the NPT, more than 200 of these so-called peaceful nuclear explosions were detonated after finally being banned under the CTBT. Since 1945, there have been a total of 2,123 nuclear explosions, including the 2 bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, both also testing the explosive and radioactive capability of the 2 weapons used. Tests conducted by 8 states were not limited to their own territories, as you can see on this slide, often causing lasting, devastating humanitarian consequences for the local populations. Nuclear tests serve as a powerful political messaging between adversarial powers during the Cold War. As this fever chart shows, there's a correlation between the number of nuclear tests and the heat of the Cold War. Look, for instance, in 1961, the year that the Berlin Wall was erected and the Soviet tested the monstrous Tsar bomber. 178 nuclear tests were detonated in 1962, pardon me, the year of the missile crisis in Cuba. That year also saw the only operational ballistic missile test with a live nuclear warhead detonated by the United States close to the Johnston Atoll in the Pacific. The chart also points to 2 other significant events in the history of international security. You'll note there's about an 18-month-long nuclear silence from 1958 to 1960, during which the 3 nuclear powers of the time, the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, attempted to negotiate a comprehensive test ban treaty. And in doing so, they all issued unilateral test moratorium. Failure to reach an agreement led to a crescendo of tests lasting until the fall of the Berlin Wall and the disbandment of the Soviet Union in 1989. But most notable on the chart is the relative quiet period since 1996. Only the Indian, Pakistani, and later the North Korean test disturbed the world. And since those three countries have not yet signed the treaty, the chart points to the success of the CTBT. However, that success is held together by thin threads of nuclear test moratoria that could be revoked by the 4 nuclear-armed states that have not yet signed and or ratified the treaty. Even though the CTBT is not yet into force, it is central to the strength of the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament superstructure. It boasts a near universal membership with 186 signatures and 176 ratifying states. And I have to pause for a moment to congratulate the Executive Secretary and his team for really moving that needle forward on the signature and ratifications. It has been amazing to watch from afar, and I look forward to hear who the next ratifier would be. Each new signature and ratification is a significant contribution to the international stability and cooperation in reducing nuclear threats, providing credible proof of a state's peaceful intentions. But the security of these states, and those who have not yet signed or ratified, are threatened if nuclear testing would resume. 8 states hold the security of the world hostage by not having ratified or signed the treaty. So being at the core of the international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime, the CTBT is one of the most effective normative instruments to reduce nuclear threats. 1, it represents a strong no-test norm, which in turn enhances international security. We no longer live in a world where tests were conducted as regular occurrences. At a time when challenges threaten the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament regime, the CTBT is a uniting force in a divided world. The unconditional value of the international monitoring system and the international data center, supplemented by the on-site inspection system as an independent, reliable, and transparent platform for verification and confidence building, has been proven many times over. Data collected by over 300 stations worldwide and analytical products offer exceptional reliability. All states benefit from the global verification regime in a truly democratic basis, thus guaranteeing the highest level of transparency. As demonstrated by the swift international condemnation of North Korea's nuclear tests, the world community, including the non-permanent members of the Security Council, are no longer dependent on the technical data that are typically held by the most powerful nations. Since all members of the Security Council have access to the same data, the CTBT verification system represents an unprecedented verification equalizer. The Executive Secretary's recent National Data Center for All initiative and the use of the spin-offs from the verification technologies for tsunami early warning, earthquake detection, etc., further help to secure buy-in to the treaty, especially in the developing world. The CTBT helps to raise proliferation costs and constrain development and qualitative improvement of more advanced nuclear weapons. In the case of a state suspected of developing a clandestine nuclear weapons program, the CTBT verification system serves as an effective whistleblower. Compared to earlier nuclear tests, the yield of their 7th test in 2017 showed that Pyongyang's capability to develop advanced nuclear weapons increased exponentially. Monitoring this qualitative improvement also highlights the importance of preventing the potential of diversion of nuclear explosive devices to another party, state or non-state. The CTBT supplements the IAEA safeguard system as a powerful downstream confidence building tool, safeguards being the upstream legally required tool for states to prove that their nuclear intentions are non-military. This is of particular importance for a state that is suspected of violating its NPT safeguards obligations. But without making CTBT ratification conditional, when addressing major safeguard challenges, offer such non-compliant states more opportunities to extract deals at a later stage while keeping the nuclear options open. The CTBT is not a nuclear disarmament treaty per se, but the no-test norm it represents is essential for deep arms reductions while lowering military confidence in the reliability of the disarmament obligations under Article 6 of the NPT. And since the obligation applies to each party, Article 6 does not apply only to the nuclear weapon states. It applies to each party of the NPT. Ratification by all states, including the 3 remaining Annex II states that do not have nuclear weapons, are of paramount importance. Just want to point out to the picture in the middle there with a very large bomb. That is the US W-87. It's one of the largest gravity bombs that the US used. That bomb was phased out in 1997, just after the CTBT was signed. So that's one of the examples of the CTBT being signed creates the environment where no testing will occur, no need for these monstrous weapons. Finally, the CTBT and its verification system enhances confidence in regional security. All existing nuclear weapon-free zones underscore the norm against testing on territories covered by these zones. Universal adherence to the CTBT in the Middle East would, in my opinion, be an important step towards a Middle East weapon of mass destruction-free zone. Similarly, signature and ratification by India, Pakistan, and North Korea could enhance regional security in South and East Asia. So, to conclude, I was asked to look at some opportunities and pitfalls. You may, if you remember the book by Sebastian Junger, The Perfect Storm, that's where the picture comes from. And it was a fishing boat on off the coast of Massachusetts in the United States that weathered a hurricane, a northeaster, and a massive storm coming from the Arctic through Canada. The boat finally perished. For the CTBT to survive, in my view, it needs to weather the storm. But we need to protect the flagship. The argument that the CTBT is inherently unverifiable, and that would-be violators could conduct military significant nuclear tests at will without fear of detection or attribution, may have resonated among CTBT skeptics 20-plus years ago, before the very first stations were built. But the performance of the IMS in the intervening years have proven that the question of the CTBT verifiability is no longer the issue. The IMS detection capabilities already far exceed those anticipated by negotiators of the treaty. However, this capability comes at a significant cost. While the political and financial commitments to the CTBTO remain strong, it is important to consider the consequences of possible political, technical, and financial fatigues, hence the perfect storm, that could set in over time in the absence of entry into force. Continuous advancements of monitoring technologies, data processing, as well as enhancement of national technical means of verification would not only further improve these capabilities, but will ensure that the system remains relevant and ready for its members in the years to come. Opportunities such as this symposium and the biennial CTBT Science and Technology conferences serve to further augment the work of the organizations and its technical divisions to maintain and improve the verification system. Notwithstanding the skepticism by some about the importance of securing more signatures and ratification among non-Annex II states, while the responsibility should lie on the Annex II states, the future of the treaty depends on all its members. The commitment by the small states, and we heard this morning about a number of them, To ratify the treaty in the face of expectations that entry into force remains elusive should be celebrated. Excluding the Annex II states that have not yet signed or ratified, there are a mere 23 and soon 22 states that have no reason not to do so. If some of these low-hanging fruits are shrouded by complex and thorny issues, their ratification should remain a high priority. Some believe that the ratification by the United States would be key to unlocking that of other remaining Annex II states. You heard the US ambassador talk about this morning. I personally do not subscribe to this domino theory. Political determination or lack thereof will decide the fate of the treaty. Despite hope stirred by former US President Obama's promise in Prague in 2009 to move the United States ratification forward, and President Biden's long-standing support, expectations for entry into force are regrettably dim. The signature and ratification of the remaining 8 are linked, but it is important to acknowledge that each one of these states have their own security and political reasons for not signing or ratifying the treaty. To move them towards ratification would require greater efforts to deal with their concerns. Opportunities to engage these states should be embraced and not avoided at the expense of other non-proliferation or regional security concerns. While high-level commitments and initiatives by many ratifying states in support of entry in force is laudable, it is time for these words to be put in concrete action. It is no longer enough to keep calling for entry into force at high-level meetings. It is time to walk the walk by including CTBT ratification and signature of the remaining 8 in all negotiations with them and between them. Finally, as long as entry into force remains elusive, the propensity for future tests remain, and in fact increases. As shown by the North Korean test, continued testing resulted in a significant qualitative improvement of their nuclear arsenal. The likelihood of at least one more nuclear test by North Korea remain. Moreover, without the CTBT in force, how long can we be confident that India and Pakistan will hold their respective test moratoria as they continue to modernize their strategic forces? And even worse, would there be a reverse domino effect if one of the 5 NPT states detonate a nuclear device? As a diplomat turned educator, I have to mention the importance of engaging the next generation of policymakers and technical experts. Prior generations did irreparable harm to the environment and international security through nuclear testing. The world that we leave to this new generation is full of pitfalls, but through initiatives such as the Youth Group, I believe these young experts are change agents to finally secure fully enforced and universal CTBT, and ultimately a world free of nuclear weapons. To conclude, the CTBT's entry into force after 26 years remain a distant goal, but this should not be the only goal. The international community is heavily invested in the CTBT, both politically and financially. It's already one of the most adhered treaties. Its verification system is unprecedented. It has been tried and tested many times. We cannot allow the treaty to fail. If we can build IMS stations in the most hostile parts of the world, we have to be able to find solutions for the entry into force riddle. In the final act to avert nuclear war during the missile crisis in Cuba, General Secretary Khrushchev, in his letter to President Kennedy, referred to the agreement, and I quote, as a good beginning, and that it could in particular make it easier to reach agreement on banning nuclear tests, which he described would be a fine gift to humanity. 60 years after Khrushchev's words, the use of nuclear weapons is again hanging over the world like the sword of Damocles. It is time for the remaining 8 states, especially those with nuclear weapons, to present humanity with a fine gift by not holding its security hostage and allowing the CTBT to enter into force. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. I think that we can consider the scene thoroughly set with that informative presentation. I would now like to invite Dominic to come to the floor and to introduce us more on the legal aspects of the treaty. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, and good afternoon from my side as well. My name is Dominic Zimmermann. I'm a senior legal officer, and I'm going to walk you through the CTBT a little bit. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the treaty itself, and later on I'm more than happy to answer questions that you may have. So the CTBT, as we've heard, has not yet entered into force, but it is an important international instrument. It bans nuclear explosions by everyone, everywhere, above ground, underwater, outer space, and underground. To understand where it's coming from, though, and what the significance of this treaty is, let's have a quick look at the history that led up to the negotiations that eventually then led to the text that we have. First of all, what deserves to be mentioned is the partial test ban treaty, which was negotiated in the early 60s and then was opened for signature and also entered into force the same year in 1963. That treaty, as its name says, the abbreviated name, the partial test ban treaty, is partial because it could not achieve consensus around prohibiting nuclear explosions underground. But otherwise, as the full title says up on the slide, it prohibited the test or nuclear explosions in outer space and underwater and in the atmosphere. What was driving that at the time was twofold. One, a recognition that we needed to constrain the nuclear arms race. And second, and this is increasingly important as well, is a recognition of the fact that nuclear tests had a very negative effect on the human health and on the environment. Although it was partial in the way that I just described, there was still the momentum to achieve a comprehensive nuclear test ban. And the next step on this way is, and this is really worth mentioning, is the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was opened for signature in 1968 and then entered into force 2 years after. Why is this important? It's quite a different instrument. It's about non-proliferation, whereas the CTBT is about banning, prohibiting nuclear explosions as such. But it is important because it took the momentum from the partial test ban treaty and reiterated it in, for example, the preamble of the NPT, where it says that the state signatories are determined to seek to achieve the discontinuance of all test explosions of nuclear weapons for all time, and they are committed to continue negotiating towards this end. After this, we have a number of regional instruments that were negotiated and also entered into force, especially treaties establishing nuclear-free zones. But we are very quickly then in the 1980s and then in the 1990s, where again the initiative was taken to negotiate a comprehensive test ban treaty, which culminated then in the 1996 text, which was negotiated in the UN Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, and then opened for signature in late 1996. We've heard the numbers, we have heard the statistics. 186 states have signed so far, which is quite impressive from a public international law perspective if you compare with other international treaties. And what is also impressive is that we have 176 states that have actually ratified, but we'll come back to that later. Let me now move to the content of the treaty. And the main provision there is, of course, Article 1, which establishes the basic obligations for the state signatories, which have committed to not engage in nuclear weapon test explosions or any other nuclear explosions. And this is very broad. This is what we are talking about when we here the term comprehensive in the title of the treaty. Secondly, each state has committed to refrain from causing, encouraging, or in any way participating in the carrying out of a nuclear weapon test, explosion, or any other nuclear explosion. These are the basic obligations that states have signed up for. And because nuclear tests are key in the development of nuclear weapons, this treaty also then contributes to effectively curbing nuclear arms proliferation. This is the link with the NPT and the nuclear non-proliferation regime. Second, what the treaty also does is, of course, establish an organization. The eventual Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization will be there to achieve the object and purpose of this treaty, as I just mentioned, and to ensure the implementation of its provisions. In more detail, what does it mean that we have this Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization? Well, it's made up, or it will be made up, of three key components. We have an annual conference of its states parties, the plenary organ. We have an executive council, eventually, of 51 member states, which are distributed equitably across all geographical regions of the world. And then we have a secretariat. Let's move to another important element of the treaty, which is the requirement to have national implementation measures. From a public international law perspective, it's of course also always important that we have not only the treaty itself, but also the obligation of states to transpose the international legal obligations into national law. And that's what we have in Article 3 of the treaty, which basically ensures that states make clear in the national legislation, in accordance with whatever constitutional system they may have, that people and organizations, and especially but not always, not only nationals, are prohibited from undertaking any activities that are prohibited under the treaty. This is what it means to sign up for the treaty, that you commit as a country to prohibit nationals or people or organizations anywhere on your territory to not engage in any activity that is prohibited under the treaty. A very unique feature for the CTBT, we've heard it already, is the verification regime that it establishes. And this is mainly in Article 4, which is a very long one, but I still encourage you to read it because it is, as I said, a unique regime, and it makes a very unique connection between public international law obligations, the functioning of international law, and the interaction with the scientific world. What are the components of the verification regime? We have mainly four: International Monitoring System, IMS. We have consultation and clarification obligations. We have on-site inspections and confidence building measures. I know you will be hearing more about IMS, IDC, and even OSI, the on-site inspections, later, so let me just focus briefly on the confidence building measures, because this is also reflective of what public international law is all about: transparency and creating trust between states. And the confidence building measure is, you can see this in the treaty in Article 4, but you can also see it in part 3 of the protocol, where it says essentially that every state is under an obligation to notify the eventual secretariat of any chemical explosion using 300 tons or greater of TNT equivalent blasting material detonation. And it's not difficult to understand why that is important. As I mentioned, this would create transparency, and it's a confidence building measure because it creates confidence in states that they are not doing anything in the secret in terms of explosions, be they nuclear or be they not, because it's not always immediately visible from the explosion as such. The verification regime, of course, as you will hear later, establishes trust among states, and that's why it is also of importance in the pre-entry into force phase of the treaty. Let me now quickly, towards the end of my presentation, introduce to you where we are right now. The treaty itself has not entered into force, but what does that mean? We've heard the numbers. We've heard ideas about where we will be in the near future, whether entry into force will happen. But right now already, we have what's called the Preparatory Commission, which is the body, the organization, the international organization that has organized this meeting, and which is the body that is established by the so-called resolution establishing the Preparatory Commission. A Preparatory Commission, from the perspective of international law, is not an unusual thing. They are often established to create the framework that is needed and to prepare, as the title says, for the eventual organization to be established and for the treaty regime to then enter into force and to be binding on all states and to function. So it's supposed to lay the groundwork. And in paragraph 1 of the resolution, it establishes exactly what the purpose is of the Preparatory Commission, what it's supposed to achieve, to carry out the necessary preparation for the effective implementation of the treaty, eventually, and preparing for the first session of the conference. This includes, of course, creating the financial, organizational, and staffing arrangements for the eventual organization. But it also means that all necessary preparations are to be undertaken to ensure the eventual operationalization of the treaty and of the verification regime at the entry into force. And to just close, as I mentioned earlier, there will be an eventual secretariat of the organization, but we also have for the Preparatory Commission a secretariat which has the task to prepare the state signatories in their work and to also develop the administrative framework that is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Now I'd like to invite Jakobas to please give us his presentation.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, excellencies. I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon and present some information regarding the organizational changes that will take effect after the entry into force of the treaty. Heads up that I managed to get a sore throat, so please excuse me and bear with me for the short presentation. My name is Jakobas Georgiou, and I'm the Secretary of Working Group B in the Advisory Group. And I will be continuing from where Dominic left, which is the resolution establishing the Preparatory Commission for the CTBTO. Okay, that's great. So, as Dominic mentioned, the resolution establishing the Preparatory Commission for the CTBTO is supposed to create two organs for preparations for the effective implementation of the CTBT, which includes the establishment and provisional operation of the verification regime, the preparation of the first session of the Conference of States Parties, and also to facilitate the ratification process and assist national implementation measures. In this presentation, I will focus on the first two, the effective implementation of the CTBT and the preparation for the first session of the Conference of the States Parties, as they relate to the title of this presentation. So the resolution establishes two organs, a plenary body, which is the Preparatory Commission, as well as the Provisional Technical Secretariat. The plenary body consists of 186 state signatories. It's a number that you'll hear a lot these days due to the recent ratifications in the 25th anniversary year. And this PrepCom is supported by three groups: Working Group A, which was set up to assist in the examination of budgetary and administrative matters; Working Group B, to assist in the examination of verification; and the advisory group to advise on financial, budgetary, and associated administrative issues. Now, each of the above bodies meet twice a year. Working Group B, which is the scientific technical body, for 10 days at a time. The advisory group, 4 to 5 days at a time. Working Group A, 2 to 3 days, and the PrepCom also 2 to 3 days. The two working groups were authorized to establish expert groups as required. And in the past, we had task leaders for Working Group A, and that dealt with issues like reduced assessment, the relationship agreement with the UN, but the current agenda and the method of work of Working Group A does not require those. Working Group B, on the other hand, currently has 16 task leaders dealing with 8 tasks, which include, among others, the developing of draft operational manuals for the seismic, radionuclide, hydroacoustic, and infrasound monitoring, for the IDC, and for on-site inspection, as well as a draft list of equipment. Additionally, Working Group B has 3 expert groups whose purpose is to bring together experts from state signatories and the PTS to discuss topics as mandated by Working Group B. The expert groups are the radionuclide expert group, the waveform expert group, and the joint expert group on data fusion. As mentioned, the other organ established by the resolution is the Provisional Technical Secretariat, whose role is to assist the plenary body, the PrepCom, in carrying out its activities. The PTS is headed by Dr. Robert Floyd, the Executive Secretary, and we have 3 technical divisions: the International Monitoring System Division, the International Data Center Division, On-Site Inspection Division, and the 2 other divisions, the Legal and External Relations Administration, and also we have the Knowledge Management and Human Resources Services, whose role is to ensure that we have knowledge management and knowledge transfer in an efficient way to maximize and utilize the institutional memory that we have in this organization. So as you are aware, the verification regime has 3 main components which relate directly to the 3 technical divisions we see there, which is the IMS network, some facts and figures that some of you may be familiar with. The IMS network will eventually have 327 stations, including primary seismic, auxiliary seismic, hydroacoustic, infrasound, radionuclide, and radionuclide laboratories. More than 90% of the network is already up and running. The IDC focuses on collecting data, analyzing and distributing this information to state signatories in the form of different bulletins or standard event lists. And the on-site inspection division is working to ensure that the surrogate inspectors are well trained. We have the draft list of equipment that would be necessary for carrying out on-site inspections, as well as the necessary manuals. At this point in time, those of you that had the possibility to follow discussions in the PrepCom or Working Group B or even Working Group A are going to be aware that we're discussing for an integrated field exercise in 2025. 2 previous ones took place in 2014 in Jordan and 2008 in Kazakhstan. Now, having provided what's currently in place with a view to being able to indicate some of the organizational changes that will take place after the treaty enters into force, I think this is a good time to mention that one of the most substantive changes that will happen after the treaty enters into force is that the organization will then have the ability to conduct on-site inspections following the provisions of the treaty. There's also the consultation and clarification mechanism that was briefly touched upon by Dominic, which is a process to resolve and clarify matters bilaterally, but also when the treaty enters into force with or through the Executive Council, which is one of the organs to be created. More specifically, though, the organizational changes as such that will take place after the entry into force include things such as changing the name of the Preparatory Commission, which will be replaced by the CTBTO, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. Ratifying states will be known as states parties, The PTS will be replaced by a technical secretariat, as it will no longer be provisional. The executive secretary will be replaced by a director general. Similarly, surrogate inspectors will be replaced by inspectors. Based on the treaty, we will have two organs. One, the principal organ for the CTBTO will be the Conference of the States Parties, which will be made up of all ratifying states. And then we'll also have the Executive Council, which is to be established and include 51 members, as already mentioned. The conference will function similarly to the preparatory commission at this point, but with increased authority, and it will have the authority to elect members for the Executive Council, consider issues that are relevant to the treaty, make recommendations, and take decisions that are relevant to the treaty. On the other hand, the Executive Council will supervise activities of the Technical Secretariat, and in case a state signatory, ratifying state, a state party, many terms, sorry about that, a state party raises concerns over the non-compliance of the treaty, then the Executive Council is the body that, to begin with, may consult with states parties involved and recommend measures to the Conference of States Parties. Now, since I'm dealing with Working Group B, and since this is a science and diplomacy symposium, Working Group B as such will not be part of the structure after entry into force, but the treaty provides that after the treaty enters into force, the conference will have the power to and the authority to direct the Director General to establish a scientific advisory board, which would be able to render specialized advice in areas of science and technology. Thank you very much. The information provided is also available on our webpage, but I'd be happy to take any questions or meet with you after this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacobas. Now, we don't have so much time left, and I do want to make sure we have time for questions. So while Sabine is speaking, start thinking of your questions. Sabine's not going to have a presentation. She's just going to share with us some of the ES's vision for 2023 and the general direction of travel. Thank you, Sabine.
Thank you, and thank you, Carly. Thank you to my colleagues. I try to be very brief. I don't have a presentation because I think it wouldn't be fair to put the ES's vision onto paper. So I'm both privileged and at the same time it's a bit of a daunting task to try to summarize the Executive Secretary's vision in a few words, but I'm privileged that my colleagues were entrusting me this role this afternoon. So in the next years going forward, you have heard already coming through this morning some of the focus areas of the Executive Secretary. One big focus area will, of course, remain universalization entry into force of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. A second one is ensuring that a complete, robust, and sustainable verification regime is in place at entry into force of the treaty. And those who were in the room during last discussions will note that I said at entry into force of the CTBT, which is direct treaty language. Ensuring that all state signatories benefit fully from the treaty membership, and ensuring an effective, efficient, and agile provisional technical secretariat. Now let's look at this a little bit more in detail. Universalization. What is sort of our expectations and hopes in the coming years? Dr. Floyd, as you could have heard this morning, is very ambitious. So he says usually by the end of 2023, he expects that from the non-Annex II states, there is going to be potentially only a handful left that have not signed or ratified the treaty. So that is quite an ambitious goal, but he also is very confident that we may reach this goal thanks to all his partnerships and all the collaborators that we have identified, and most of them are in the room, and there are many also outside of the room. So this will then, of course, focus on the Annex II states. And there I need to say a big thank you to Jean, because he almost already elucidated what will be the strategy towards approaching the Annex II states. It's indeed true. Each and every of them have their individual political and security circumstances. What will be important to address them individually? To build partnerships, to identify who are the collaborators and what will move them individually to move closer to the treaty. The picture is not that bad. 5 of the Annex II states are really active contributors to the organization, both financially, politically, also technically. These are China, Egypt, Iran, Israel, and as you heard this morning, the USA. So in reality, we have 3 Annex II states that have not yet signed the treaty, which are India, Pakistan, and the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. Pakistan, however, and we tend to forget this, they are an observer to the treaty, which is important, which means they can attend conferences and get sort of a basic knowledge about the work. So this would be maybe one step which we could entice also others to move closer to the treaty, in particular those that haven't signed yet. So what will be important in the coming years are partnerships. Partnerships across different stakeholders, youth. I'm very, very pleased with our youth group. We have more than 1,250 or so participants, and all Annex II states, except one, you can all guess which one, are represented in the youth group. And it's actually quite astonishing how many of the young people from the Annex II states are interested in the CTBT and have in the past also advocated for the CTBT. And then, of course, the platforms that we heard of this morning already mentioned. It's the Article 14 conferences that are held every 2 years. They are at the ministerial level, currently chaired by South Africa and Italy. Then there are the ministerial Friends of the CTBT meetings that are usually held during the United Nations General Assembly high-level week. And the last one was just in December, chaired by Prime Minister even of Japan, Kishida. Ensuring a complete, robust, and sustainable verification regime, what does that mean? Well, the installations of the 337 facilities that we have are almost nearing completion. 93% of this around $1 billion investment have already been completed. The data availability is rather high. However, the network is aging. So what do you need to do? There are recapitalization, replacement, things fail, stations go down, don't send data anymore. We have unfortunately or fortunately identified that there is a budgetary gap to sustain the verification regime in a completed fashion. And that is something that member states are currently quite occupied with, I would say, to see how we can really put this asset, this biggest asset that the organization have, on a stable financial footing in future, not being dependent on generous voluntary contributions like we heard this morning, among others. How to ensure that all state signatories benefit fully from treaty membership. There are a lot of technological trainings. Some of you may have already participated in our multiple technological trainings. They are both in persons and online. I think even in the last 9 months, we trained 600 people and participants in live events, which is quite an outstanding number. The Executive Secretary mentioned this morning the NDC for All initiative. You will hear more about this if you're interested. On Thursday afternoon, I think it is on the program. But what it is supposed to be doing is there are 43 states that are totally unable to access IDC data. Both for monitoring purposes, that no nuclear test explosion goes undetected, but also for ancillary purposes, like tsunami warning agreements, earthquake monitoring data, or other research data. So the NDC for All initiative will be a big part of the Executive Secretary's capacity building outreach in the coming years. And last but not least, how to ensure we have an effective, efficient, and agile workforce in the Provisional Technical Secretariat. That requires process efficiencies, modernization, enhancing multilingualism, which many of you will be happy to hear. We had in a long time, last week for the first time, that all our governing bodies, main governing bodies session, the preparatory commissions session, have been transcribed and are able to be watched on the expert communication system in all 6 CTBTO languages. You heard this morning and also at lunchtime, working towards greater gender, geographic, and generational diversity in the PTS. You heard about the mentoring program. You heard also, or you may hear, there are a number of outreach events that HR is, for instance, planning to reach sort of more underrepresented geographical areas and to attract more people to our work. And then, yes, what is also important, you need a motivated staff force that are empowered, that are in a supportive culture, so that they can contribute to the best of their abilities. So a lot of work is going also into internal process improvements, structural reforms, basically, finally, I'm telling you a secret now. We, in the executive office, you wouldn't believe how much paper we still have to deal with. I mean, for a technological organization like ours in the 21st century, things like this need to change. So, and with this, I hope I have given you a little bit more glimpse of what the Executive Secretary's plans are, ambitious plans I may add. And yes, I think we are ready for your questions if you still have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine. Now, unfortunately, I think that we could talk about this all day, it would seem. Unfortunately, we don't have any time left for questions, which is just terrible. And I must apologize to our participants here. This is the first day. We will have plenty of opportunities to take your questions, and I'm hoping that the panelists will also make themselves available in the margins. So I do want to hear from you. I know that colleagues on the panel also do as well. So with that, I would just like to say I hope that everyone is feeling empowered, well-informed on the basics of the political and legal aspects of the treaty, and I hope that you all are able to catch us with any questions in the margins and enjoy the rest of the program. Don't forget that if you want to sign up for a facilities tour, you can do it over there. Also, if you would like to qualify for a certificate of completion, again, the sign-up sheet is over there. So please, I'd like to thank our panelists and enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. There are still people queuing there. Let's see how it is.
Dear participants, I would like to invite you to your seats. We can continue with the sign-up after the next presentation. Thank you.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. I see already almost everyone sitting, but I was glad to see that queue there because actually we've been subscribing for a tour that will take place tomorrow and after tomorrow, and it's about a presentation that we're going to have now. It's about IMS. So happy to see so many people interested to subscribe and to participate on those guided visits. So I think we had already 15 minutes passed from our time. I'll try to fit the rest of the presentation, which is about the international monitoring system. You have heard about already from the previous colleagues today, and this presentation will be the logical follow-up about international monitoring system, the tool that is used to allow us to see compliance or not compliance with the treaty to detect, hopefully not, events. So let's see, the session was called, I saw in the program, Deep Dive 1. So let's take a deep dive into the IMS. You'll hear this IMS all the time. It stands for International Monitoring System, okay? So this slide will a little bit repeat what was already said just right now about the treaty, the CTBT, that bans all nuclear explosion, any type of explosion, whatever military or peaceful. Then also any type, underground, above ground, underwater, they're all included in this CTBT. And the Preparatory Commission, you just heard what is the mandate and what is the structure. So I'll not repeat this one, but it's important to repeat those 4 elements of the verification regime so that you can have a good idea where the IMS stays. So we have the first element, which is the International Monitoring System, and you'll see the components of it in a moment. Then we have consultation and clarifications, on-site inspection, and confidence building. And our focus this afternoon will be in this presentation about the International Monitoring System. Okay? So within the International Monitoring System, like element of the treaty, we have the International Monitoring System, the network of stations. Also, IMS is a division of the Secretariat. And we have also International Data Center, and you'll see the presentation later this afternoon. So data which is received from the IMS, forwarded to the IDC, and I use the acronyms because we have so many times used those acronyms. So those data, they will be used one day when the treaty enters into force to be forwarded to the on-site inspection, because it may be the basis of a potential on-site inspection. And even now, these data, they are forwarded to the state signatories, to the national data centers, to be used by the state signatories. So this is the IMS with those 2 elements, the IMS and the IDC. So I believe you have the treaty in front of you, or you have it on the webpage. The Article 4 defines the role and the components of the IMS. So it says in the paragraph 16 that the IMS comprise seismological, radionuclide, hydroacoustic, and infrasound monitoring. So the 4 technologies which will be considered, they are defined clearly into the treaty. They're not just coming from nowhere, they are stated and they are defined in the treaty. And the International Monitoring System is under the authority of the Technical Secretariat, or the PTS at the moment, but all the facilities, they are owned and operated by the state signatories. So this is important, the ownership and the responsibility to operate those facilities. And among you, I see many station operators. We had last week a workshop on operation and maintenance. So those are the institutions, the people which stays behind this operation and maintenance of the facilities. So what is the mandate? What is the IMS network designed to? Is to detect signals caused by nuclear tests underground, at the surface, or underwater. Okay? And the role of the IMS division is to establish and sustain this network, to provide relevant, reliable, and secure data. So we have to provide to the state signatories, to the station operators, technical support to do that. And yeah, I'm reading that IMS exceed the originally anticipated performance because the data actually presently is used not only to detect explosions, but also for civil purposes, and you'll see that with the IDC presentation. So the international monitoring system, the network, we have those 4 technologies: seismic, hydroacoustic, infrasound, and radionuclide. With the seismic, which is designed to detect underground explosions, and we have 154 stations, over 170 according to the treaty, which are already certified and sending data. From hydroacoustic stations, which are designed to detect underwater explosions, we have 11 stations in the treaty, and 11 are built and certified and sending data. From the infrasound network, we have 60 stations in the treaty, 53 are sending data, they are certified, and the infrasound stations, they are designed to listen and to detect explosions in the atmosphere. And the last technology, which is the radionuclide, which is detecting relevant radiation. And we have 96 facilities, stations or laboratories, and we have 86 of them which are certified and sending data to Vienna. So you see, it's more than 90%, I heard 93%, to be more exact, of the stations in the treaty already certified and sending data. So in the rest of the presentation, I'll go through very briefly along those 4 technologies so that you have an idea of how the potential explosions will be detected and what are the technology behind. Okay, this is the map of, first of all, the international monitoring system. I hope you have it, or if not, maybe you can request to have it, with 321 facilities displayed, and on the back side you have the coordinates per technology, the listing per technology, and the location name. This map actually is also available on the website, ctbto.org. You can have it in PDF high-resolution format there. Also, a part of the IMS is the Global Communication Infrastructure, GCI, probably you'll hear it several times, GCI. This is the system of satellites which is used to transfer the data from the stations to IDC here in Vienna. This is a satellite network contracted and specialized especially for the data of the IMS. And here we go with the first technology, the seismic technology, with the network of seismic stations. Probably is the most known because seismic, already we think about earthquake. So this map is taken also from the CTBTO webpage. You might have it there. So we have 50 primary seismic stations and 120 auxiliary seismic stations. This is upon the treaty. What it means? Primary seismic stations, they are sending data in real time to Vienna. So from the stations, data are immediately sent through the GCI network, satellite network, to Vienna. The auxiliary seismic stations, they are collecting data, but this data is received in Vienna upon request, whenever needed, to support the data from the primary seismic stations or the data from another technology. So total 170 stations using the seismic technology. Without going too much into details, the seismic wave propagation, it's a vibration propagated through the ground, through the underground, through the soil. So we have different waves. Those different waves are, the difference between them is on the wave propagation, the wave vibration along the propagation or perpendicular to that. So those waves, they create a vibration. A vibration is detected and recorded and sent as signal, as data to Vienna. So the seismic stations, they are designed to detect those vibrations, those signals in the ground. But the vibration can be, of course, man-made. It can be natural. And there is a difference between those. And we are interested in, especially on explosion. So that's why this slide in a very simplistic way describes the difference between an explosion and a natural event. Like here we have, oops, not that one. We have the two traces Here, one on the top is a explosion. If you read here, it's a nuclear explosion. Here, the first trace, the second one as well, and the third trace, it's a Mongolian earthquake. So you see the type of the signal, it's quite different. If it's an explosion, there is a very big amplitude signal that comes sharp immediately after the event. And you can see it here. Okay, here, you see this sharp event starting when the explosion occurs. And it's totally different when there is an earthquake, because the ground starts moving quietly, and then we have the peak, and then it goes attenuating. So you see those two signals, they are quite different, and the analysts here in Vienna, they have means to make the difference automatically and visually between those two types of events. Also, which is characteristic, an earthquake has different energy spread in different directions, because an earthquake, there is, for instance, the plates moving one against the other, so we have a preferential direction of the maximum energy which is released, while for a explosion, like here, an explosion, we have this energy irradiated from the ground zero along on all directions, almost in the same amplitude. So this is a crucial difference between those two types of events. I just say an example of seismic stations. They have to be installed far away from any noise, source noise, any source of vibration, so basically in the middle of nowhere. The coordinates of each station, seismic or infrasound, or any of the 321 stations in the treaty, the coordinates, they have been set in the treaty. If you see Annex 1, you see the stations and their coordinates, but the exact location where the station has to be located is chosen when site survey is done. I think I have a slide later on, so that the environment is propice for the relevant technology to be quiet and to be far away from sources of the noise. And here, the source of noise is vibration. I have this here only for training purposes. Yes, so let's move then. The other technologies, it's hydroacoustic, so meant to detect explosions underwater. We have 11 hydroacoustic stations. So we have 6 hydrophone stations, which means we have those 6 stations, they have all the instrumentations, the equipment installed underwater. Those are hydrophones to detect the sound underwater, and 5 so-called T-phase stations, which are basically seismometers. They're seismic stations, but located on the shore to detect vibration caused by an event underwater. And you see there are only 11. The location is presented on that map, but the propagation is such underwater that even 11 stations allow to listen for events underwater. So, and they cover the entire the underwater space in the oceans. This is the installation of a hydrophone station on the left-hand side, here. So we have the shore equipment, and then we have long cables up to several hundred of kilometers, and then a triplet of hydrophones, which are underwater, to detect this sound. And the other station, which is basically a seismic station, on the right-hand side. On the shore, we have the seismometer, exactly as a seismic station installed, but to detect movement caused by an underwater event, propagating through the water or through the floor. Okay, this slide is to show you the link. I believe you're going to have this presentation, and the link, it's about the installation of hydroacoustic station. And the station in question, it's the HO4. It's a French station in Crozet Island in the South Indian Ocean. It's a spectacular installation. It's a different magnitude of equipment and of work to install those stations underwater. So you have a short and a longer movie. how the station was installed. So even if you visit the ctbto.org site, I believe you have the link, or the YouTube of the CTBTO, you have the link to this, to those movies, which are about 13 minutes, but you can quietly see that whenever you want to do that. So those hydrophones underwater, they are meant to detect, of course, explosions. This is the mandate, but also they detect all other sounds, and it can be used. And the sounds, we can play those sounds. So the first one is the blue whale. So let's hear how the blue whale recorded by the triplet looks like, sounds like. Okay, the little, we had the background noise, and then the little ooh, it was the the whale. So the fin whale, it's a totally different. And you can see, actually, before playing it, you can see, this is the spectrogram, this is the sound, actually, the sound, you can see it here, those, in the frequency, we have higher amplitude of different signal, so you can see it here, or in the time series, along the time, we have the signal, like event. So for the blue whale, it looks like this, but for the fin whale, it's much more high frequency noise. And you see also for the pygmy blue whale, there is another type of sound. So we can play those two again. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah, those are the noises. Let's hope that we register only this type of sounds and not explosion sounds in the ocean. But anyway, the instrumentation is there. If there is a explosion in violation of the treaty, we're gonna, of course, record it. But meanwhile, those are among the signals which are recorded. And these are they sent to Vienna as well. So let's go to the next, not so spectacular one, the infrasound. And we cannot listen to the infrasound because by default it's a sound that is beyond the 20 hertz, so we cannot listen to the infrasound frequencies, so we cannot play it. But to listen for the infrasound signals caused by eventual explosions, there are 60 stations upon the treaty, and we have 53 of them installed. So this slide shows this band of interest between the 50 seconds and 4 hertz. This is the band of interest for the CTBTO, for the CTBT. So if we expect to have an event from a nuclear explosion, it will be within this band. So that's why all the equipment is tuned, especially filtering the signal from that within this frequency band. Okay, so below this frequency we have the gravity waves, which are very low frequency, and above this 20 hertz, which is the theoretical boundary of the infrasound, we have the ultrasound, which is known more by hospitals, ultrasonic equipment and so on. So what are the sources of infrasound? Of course, not only explosions. Any explosion will create infrasound, stronger or less strong, depending on the yield. But beyond these man-made explosions, we have a large variety of natural sources. So we have the volcanoes, which create infrasound. We have the avalanche. We have the surf, the microbaromes. We have all the, so we have the volcanoes, the North Aurora is causing also infrasound. We have everything that enters into the atmosphere, bolides, also the rocket launches. Those create a compression in the air, which is change in the pressure in the air, which is at the end infrasound. So all those sources, they can create infrasound, they are creating infrasound, and also the analysts here, they have tools like in seismic to detect between a nature event and a man-made source of infrasound. Okay. I think I'll need your help because I cannot move on. On the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So infrasound stations, they are in contrast with the seismic stations, which may have one element. Infrasound, they are always arrays. They have 4 or 5 or 8 or more elements. So at the slide here, we have one of those elements here shown. So we have at each station at least 4 of those. And the equipment inside, we have a sensor which detects the infrasound. Then we have a digitizer which converts the analog signal to a digital signal. Then we have a wind noise reducing system. You'll see tomorrow when you visit the infrasound stations downstairs here. This filtering system here, which is called wind noise reducing system. It is a system that reduces the noise from the wind, which is the main enemy of the infrasound signal that we are interested in. And we have those systems to reduce as much as possible the wind noise. And the infrasound stations, so 60 in total, they are spread evenly wherever they could be installed. So we have a variety of environmental conditions from the very south in Antarctica, like here in Savannah, we have in the north in Greenland this one. We have in the rainforest, we can have it in the desert. So a variety of stations. It applies the same for seismic stations. In a very large variety of different environmental conditions, we have a variety of different installations for those stations. And the last, the fourth technology, which is the radionuclide, it's at the end the only technology, the only technique that can confirm if an event which is detected by the waveform technologies, hydroacoustic, infrasound, or seismic, is an event that is not compliant to the treaty. Because the waveform, in waveform technologies, we can detect an event, but only the radionuclide technology can confirm that this event produced isotopes which are man-made, which are proper to a fusion, and we can relay those to a event in non-compliance with the treaty. So what we have, and here it says the radionuclide technology is the only one that is able to confirm the origin of the event. Okay, it's nuclear or not. If it's a explosion, the other technologies, they can say seismic or infrasound. We can say, yes, it's an explosion. But what is the origin of this explosion? The radionuclide technology can confirm if, yes, it was a nuclear explosion. So how it works, we have either particulates in the air, which are released after an atmospheric explosion, or we have noble gases which escape through fissures if the explosion was underground, and those gases could escape through the fissures of the subsurface. So we have 80 radionuclide stations, 40 within those 80 They have also the capabilities to detect noble gas. So we have 80 for particulate in any case, and 40 among those 80 also they can detect noble gases. And also we have 16 laboratories where the samples can be analyzed. So this is the radionuclide network. And a radionuclide station consists, it's for particulates. The first slide here, we have the air sampler where with a vacuum air is sucked, then particulates are analyzed to see the presence of those which are of interest to the CTBT. Then we have the station building where all this is analyzed, and the satellite antenna to make the link to Vienna and to send the results. Or the noble gas on this side, we have the system, the air system, air inlet from which the gas is, the air is sucked, and looking for presence or not of noble gases. So this is the general scheme of the radionuclide monitoring. We have first to acquire the data at the stations. So all those 80 stations, they are acquiring this data, particulates or noble gas. Then this data, they are analyzed for particular isotopes of interest. Then we have the categorization of the measurements to understand if it's a natural background, because isotopes, they exist with the normal background, or we are talking about anthropogenic isotopes of interest to the treaty. And then also there is if there is an event, of course there is a modeling, the atmospheric modeling, to see eventually the plumb of the atmosphere where those particulates or gases may be detected, how this plumb is moving into the atmosphere, and which station can be prompt to detect those particulates or noble gas. So the station establishment, each of those 321 stations, for each of those, we have the same workflow, the same process of establishment. Starts with facility agreement with the state parties. Then when this facility agreement to support the installation is signed or agreed, site survey happens. There is a team from Vienna supported by the station operators who provides a site survey for looking for the best location for each station, exactly around the treaty coordinates, but location which is quiet without vibration for seismic, quiet without high winds for infrasound. Also specific places for the underwater stations, for the hydrophones, for the bathymetry. It needs to be studied to see how the cables will be run and where. And also for radionuclide, to find the best location for the radionuclide stations, so that the background of isotopes, natural isotopes, does not mask potential presence of anthropogenic isotopes. So this site survey is the second phase. Then when the site is found, we have the civil work starting. The station is designed with equipment and layout. And it's quite a big construction to host the equipment, to host the sensors. Then once this installation construction work, it's ready, comes time to install the equipment. So this is station installation, testing, and certification. All those three processes are one after the other, made in a way that at the end, after the certification, the equipment installed at the station is conform with the technical specification required, and data received to Vienna is sent from sensors, from equipment, which is compliant with those technical specifications. Once certified, the station starts to be so-called in operation. This slide, if you've been here last week, you saw it many times. This is the life cycle of a station, starting with the site survey here, site survey, Then we have the station installation certification, which means we have the station location defined, the equipment and the layout defined. All the equipment is installed, tested, certified, and then the equipment also is put in the database. And at that point, after the certification, the station starts its life in operation and maintenance. So we have normal maintenance, then we have upgrades of those stations or full upgrades within the years. So basically, from here, after the certification to the full upgrade, we are talking about a time span about 15, 20 years. So the first stations being installed around year 2000 or 1999, I think the first one. And we started roughly 20 years, 15 years after that to recapitalize those stations because of obsolescence of equipment, because of lack of spares, because of failure, because sometimes of redesigning of the station itself. So this is how the life cycle of a station looks like. And all this maintenance work, this sustainment work is made because there are very high requirements of the IMS data to be received. And those requirements, they are following the operation manual. And according to those, we have a requirement to have 98% of data for the waveform and 95% for radionuclide technologies received here in Vienna. So, which means, if we translate that, we have to have in 1 year from all stations, so 7 days per station for waveform stations, downtime. So, means each station from the waveform group, infrasound, hydroacoustic or seismic, can be non-operational, so no sending data, 7 days per year. Or for radionuclide, this is 15 days in total per year, or 7 consecutive days. So you can imagine what work requires from the station operators to maintain this high level of performance of the station. And here the work also from the Vienna side. It's a joint work, station operators and PTS team, to assure this high data availability. I believe in the IDC presentation you have more data about how those data looks here in Vienna, but this is a slide that presents the histograms, the data availability per year, per technology. So you see with infrasound it's almost 100%, it's above 99% on those years. And then we have also seismic and radionuclide stations following up. So I believe we are almost on time. With this, I'll end my presentations to leave probably time for a few questions. And if we don't have time for questions now, so that we are not taking for your coffee time, tomorrow we're going to meet with, I believe, at least 3 groups for the visits downstairs to the seismic and infrasound stations here in the ground of the VAC. And we can discuss more details about the stations and requirements and any technical questions that you might have. So thank you very much for the moment. Any questions? Okay, see here, please.
Hello. Congratulations for your presentations. I'm Begoña Pérez from Spain, and I have some doubts. The station for measuring and obtain the data, don't you use the state members' station data? Don't share the results or something like that? Is the first question. And about the particles and novel gas that you detect, are they radioactive or only is, for example, radon or something like that? and or if they are ionizing radiation. You understand?
Okay, thank you very much, Begonia. Okay, to your first question about the data is sent from each station to Vienna, and then every national data center is receiving, can receive this data. So the data is sent back to all member states from all the stations on request. So this data is available to all member states. So we have a seismic station in Spain, it's PS40 in Toledo. So yeah, you have your data from your station, but upon request you can have all the data from other seismic stations, for instance. And to your second question, yes, of course, the particulates, they are articulates, those are isotopes. They have different energies, and it's gamma radiation, so it's ionizing radiation.
Another question. So if they are ionizing radiation, and I suppose that you measure with gamma emitters, or you can get a test and measure with alpha or beta radiation?
You got me with a very nice question because I'm not radionuclide specialist, but yes. So that the particles, they are collected through this air sampler. So this is a filter that detects, that collects whatever comes. They can be any type of particles, alpha, beta, or gamma radiating, whatever comes. Then because there is an interest on particular particles, so these filters, they are left 24 hours to rest. So whatever is not of interest, so alpha, beta, they can have very short lifetime. So they're just vanishing, leaving only those energies, those isotopes which are of interest. So the most of them still living, and then only the detection is performed at the station. There are detectors there. So I showed there was one graph of energy against counts. Yeah. So what is measured is. And for more details, we can discuss with some colleagues which are really from radionuclide to give you really more specific answers to that. Thank you. Any other question? Okay, so thank you very much again, and have a good continuation of the symposium. And see you tomorrow.
all low-hanging fruit. It was a very good presentation, by the way. Keep plucking those fruit. It's actually why I'm a member of the CTBT group. Like, it's like the thing that I really like. And it's actually what I've been doing for the past like 5-6 years since I met Dr. Zergo in Japan. And it was CIF actually.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but you know, I was a much younger guy when I thought, geez, this is an interesting treaty.
Were you 16?
Was there when they negotiated it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we can slowly start, and I will try to shorten the presentation as much as I can so that we try to finish on time. My name is Ishraq Ketata. I am working at the International Data Center, and it's a big pleasure for me today to give you a short introduction about what we are doing in our division. The presentation will be divided in three main parts. So first of all, I will talk about the verification regime from the vision of IDC. Then I will be talking about the DPRK case study, about the data and analysis results. And then I will conclude the presentation by talking about the civil and scientific applications. So my presentation is a follow-up in this educational component, and it's a complementary to all the presentations that you saw in the afternoon. The PTS, the Provisional Technical Secretariat, in discharging its responsibilities to establish the verification regime and ensure its compliance with the treaty, is composed or it has three technical pillars. From one side, the international monitoring system that you have already get introduced to it with the previous presentation. The on-site inspection, you will get more in-depth information tomorrow, and the International Data Center that I will be talking about it today. So first of all, I would like to start to talk about the mission and role of the IDC as it was defined in the protocol to the treaty from paragraph 16 to paragraph 23. So first of all, the IDC shall be operating the international monitoring system 7 days a week, 24 hours, by receiving the data and collecting it, processing the data, analyzing it, and reporting the results of analysis, and also archiving all the data that is received. The IDC shall also apply an automatic processing and interactive analysis to the data that is received from the IMS. And so basically what the IDC is in charge of receiving the data, analyzing it, but it's the responsibility of the state signatories to provide the final judgment if the nature of the event was a nuclear one or not. The IDC shall also provide all state parties with open, equal, timely, and convenient access to all IMS data, so raw results and the processed IDC products. The IDC shall also provide technical assistance to state parties and shall continuously monitor and report on the operational status of the international monitoring system facilities. So basically, this verification part will try to highlight each separate point in more details. So first of all, let's understand how this works. So the global communication infrastructure, GCI, is the worldwide data communication intranet that was specifically developed to support the transmission of data. So the GCI ensure that you see from the top image, ensure that the data arrives to the IDC in a timely manner. This data is arriving from the IMS and then will be processed at the IDC and made available for the state for the state signatories. So not everyone has access to this data, and the question is who is eligible to access it. So every state signatory that wants to use its right to full access to the monitoring data needs to establish a secure signatory account, SSA. And with this account, there will be different rows of users that will be assigned, and those users, so there is principal point of contact, there is regular users, those users will be able to access the IMS data and the IDC products. So to fulfill its mission, the IDC division under the IDC director and added to the IDC program and project coordinator, the quality management data review and the budget implementation. There are 5 sections, under which there are 1, 2, 3 units. So those sections, sorry, okay, now it's working. So those sections, they are interconnected with each other in order to fulfill their responsibilities. And in nutshell, so there are different responsibilities for each section, but in nutshell, the automatic processing system section is responsible for the timely provision of the high quality data, products and services. The monitoring and data analysis section is responsible for the interactive analysis. The software application section is responsible for the improvement of knowledge and software that responds to the PTS and state signatories' needs. The operations section is responsible for the monitoring of the operations of IMS, GCI links and reporting. And the capacity building and training section is responsible for developing the capacity of state signatories to receive, process and analyze the IMS data and IDC products in order to fulfill their treaty verification role. Is there a reason why okay. Now, as I mentioned before, so I will try to get back to each point in more details. So I will try to keep it short on the slide because you have already seen the IMS presentation, but basically the data that we are receiving at the IDC is originating from this huge network. So we are receiving data, or when it's complete, we should be receiving data from 321 stations and 16 laboratories. And in the table, you can see the number of the already certified stations against the total number of the planned stations. Then, once we receive the data will undergo the automatic processing pipeline and then an interactive analysis by an expert analyst. But before deep diving into this processing, because it's a quite complex process, I would like to highlight in this slide the differences between the 4 verification technologies. So from one side, on the left side of the slide, there is the SHI technologies, the seismic hydroacoustic infrasound. The analysis of the data originating from those SHI stations will help us to answer questions like, where was an event detected? Where is the event located? When this event happened? Is this event natural event or man-made event? But the analysis of this data won't provide us an answer to a question if this event was a nuclear explosion or not. And this is where the RN technology came into play, because the RN technology helped us to find out an answer to this question. However, the analysis of the radionuclide data is heavily dependent on the wind pattern. And this is where the atmospheric transport modeling came into play, because it provides us the link between the SHI technologies and the RN technology. And this is what I cannot. Yeah. So this is what I will try to highlight in this slide. So basically we are using the ATM in 2 modes. First mode, it's the forward mode. And this mode is used when we know, for example, the location of a release, and we try to simulate how it will be propagating. However, if we don't know the location, can you please help me, because I cannot, okay, no. However, the backward simulation is used if we have a detection at the station, but we would like to track what is the origin of this detection. And in that case, the backward simulation will be running to try to find an answer to that. So now, having this in mind, I will try to give you an overview how complex the process of analyzing the data that we are receiving. I also forget to mention that for the SHI data, for the seismic, we have two types of stations. We have primary seismic stations that are continuously sending data, and we have auxiliary stations that only sending data on a request. The infrasound and hydroacoustic, they also send the data continuously, with one difference that the infrasound propagation is slower, so the data arriving from infrasound stations might arrive later than hydroacoustic and seismic. But from the other side, if a station detected something, this will be sent to the IDC within seconds, thanks to the GCI. And once the data is received at the IDC, then for each single station, there will be a station processing that is running to see if there are any signals of interest that are detected in the waveforms. Then, from the hydroacoustic and seismic data, there will be the first automatic product, the cell one, that tries to see if this data are originating from the same event and try to combine the data from different stations that correlates to the same event. Then, based on the results of this first automatic processing product, there will be requests to the auxiliary stations in the area of this event to get more information and try to include it in the next automatic processing products, which is the cell 2 that includes auxiliary stations and infrasound stations data that is arriving late. And I would like to say late means that depending on the time of the event. So just because, for example, if event happened now, then you have propagation of the wave, but the detection of this event by station will happen late. And this is why the cell 2 will include more data and potentially more data from more stations. And then we have the cell 3, which is the last automatic processing results. And then an expert analyst will be reviewing all the events that are automatically detected to ensure the high quality that we are delivering to the member states. And the results of the analysis by an analyst is saved into REB, Reviewed Event Bulletin, and then based on this final list of events, there will be a screening process that will be run, and that will exclude all the potential natural event and only keep the events of interest in the SACB product. Now, before showing the same timeline for the radionuclide, I would like also to emphasize another difference between the RN and SHI technologies, which is the difference of time when a detection happens and when the data is ready for analysis. So if we suppose that there is an event that happened, and the radioactive particulates will be, or noble gases will be transported by wind, they will arrive at the IMS facilities with a delay, depending on the wind pattern. And then once arriving at the station, there is also a process before data is becoming ready to be sent to the IDC. And as you can see here, there is a sample collection, then there is the decay, and there is data acquisition, and the data will be ready to be sent to the IDC with a delay of minimum 2 for noble gases or 3 days for particulate. So now back to the RN. So once we receive the data at the IDC, it's similar to what is in the SHI. First, we have this automatic processing pipeline, then and which will be resulting in ARR, automatic radionuclide report. And this ARR will also include as an attachment an ITM backward simulation that demonstrates what would be the possible source region of this sample. Then again, the ARR will be reviewed by an analyst, and this will be resulting in a reviewed radionuclide report, RRR, and then will undergo again a screening process to apply the screening criteria to the RRR. So as you can see, there are a lot of products depending on which stage, and there are a lot of data that is coming in. It's more than 20 gigabytes of data that we are processing every day. And because of this huge amount of data, there is a need of continuously monitoring the status of this data. So I will try to keep this one brief, because tomorrow you will have also a visit to the Ops Center. So the image in the center is the Ops Center. You see the different big screens that shows some examples of the software that we developed in order to ensure this continuous monitoring of the operational status. So we have a variety of softwares that can be used to monitor each stage. So we can monitor the state of health of a station, we can monitor the GCI link. There is also possibility to monitor the data that is coming in, the status of the automatic processing, what are the events that are created by the automatic processing, what is the data that is delivered to the state signatories, and so on. So there is really a huge amount of software tools that were developed. So it's the responsibility of the IDC. It's not only to monitor and to ensure the quality of the data, but also to ensure that the state signatories have all the tools and the knowledge to also to fulfill their verification role. And for that, the IDC has a very rich program to support the state signatories in that. So you see the statistics on the right. So from the latest report, the IDC provided 68 capacity building systems to help some of the state signatories to establish their own NDCs. They have also a rich program from workshops, trainings, targeting different levels of expertise of the station operators, of the NDCs, in order to so that you see, for example, the different types of workshops and events that are organized. And not only that, the CBT is also providing some of those modules, some of those trainings as e-learning modules. So also, I mentioned before that the data can be only accessed by authorized users, and there are many types of, or many ways how this data can be accessed. So first of all, there is a user, an authorized user can make a request to get, for example, information about specific event or configuration of specific station. They can be the authorized user can subscribe to a special type of product, like for example, subscribing to REB products. So whenever there is an REB product that is ready, the user will receive the information. We also developed at the IDC the security web portal, which allows also to see the information about the IMS data, the IDC products, and request them and so on. And they also have the access to the data directly through the database. The IDC is also supporting the state signatories for special requests. So in this table, I summarized or I put the three special requests that we might be receiving and we need to process, and that are not on the how to say, the normal workflow that we are doing every day. So there is the national event screening that will be resulting in a type of product called an NEB, National Event Bulletin, and National Screened Event Bulletin. There is the special studies that will be resulting in updated event bulletin, updated radionuclide report, and there is also a special technical analysis that will be resulting in SRMR product. But not only that, we are always trying to enhance our technical capability, and we are always trying to keep our software and our knowledge up to date. And this is by enhancing our scientific methods, the algorithms that we implement, and enhancing our software, not only for our internal PTS needs, but also for the state signatories, because we provide the state signatories with the CBS if needed. We provide them with training. We also provide them with an NDC in a box, which is a machine containing the tools that we are using internally, so that they can use those tools with their data or with our data to ensure that they are also able to make the same analysis and to verify the results that we are providing. And now I would like to move to the DPRK announced nuclear test and and what are the IDC the results of processing from the IDC perspective. First of all, I know that you have seen this in the previous presentation of the IMS, but it's also important to highlight it from the processing point of view. So we have already, as you can see from the image, and also we have already some algorithms and methods in place that allows us to really distinguish between an explosion and an earthquake. And this is really a good example because it shows nearly in orange there is the explosion, and in gray there is the earthquake, and they are geographically really near to each other. But with our system, we are also able to detect, to differentiate between both of them. So this is because of the type of waveform that is detected. So I would like just to explain a little bit more this slide. So first of all, I will focus only on the P wave and S wave, which are the body. So the P wave is called as P because it's primary wave, and it's recorded, it's faster than the S wave, and it arrives faster to the station. So it's in the waveforms that you see. I don't know if you can see the black ones, the labels. So they are showing the different detections. So the first one is the P, and the second one is the S. And in the explosion, and the P, you see from the left side, the first one, it's the propagation is like it's a compression and expansion, and it's in the same direction of the propagation. The S wave is like perpendicular to the propagation. And if you still remember from the slide of the IMS presentation, so if there is an explosion, so the energy will be propagating in outwards all direction at the same time, and so outwards all direction. And this is why you see in the orange this peak at the beginning, which is like very high energy at the P wave. However, if there is an earthquake, so this shearing motion, so it's perpendicular, and this is why you see the energy for the gray part, it's more concentrated on the late of the waveform. So it's just to highlight what is implemented and what is in place to distinguish between both of them. And now in this slide, I put there is the 6 announced DPRK tests that shows how we were evolving through the time through our analysis. So first thing to highlight on this slide, if you can see the big ellipse in yellow, so the biggest one, it was the first event in 2006, and you see how big is that one, and then you compare it by the green one, which is the smallest one of the event of 2017. And the error ellipse is very important because this is the area where if there is a requested on-site inspection after the treaty enters into force, so they will be inspecting this area. And when the ellipse is smaller, then the work will be much more efficient and easier for our on-site inspection colleagues. And you see throughout the years, and also because the number of stations that have been installed and certified is increasing, you see how much impact this has on our way to define the location of the event and the confidence area of that event. In this slide, I wanted also to stress the fact for the latest event that all our SHI technology were able to detect this event. And it's also important to mention that in 2017, we had 42 primary seismic stations and 41 already detected this event. So almost all the certified stations have detected it. Not even that, but also after, I think, 8 minutes from the real event, our automatic processing detected another event, and the correlation showed that it's in the same region of the event, and this was classified as an aftershock event. And since then, at the IDC, we have detected more than 30 aftershock events in that area. We have also different radionuclide stations that are installed in that region, and some of them, they have also the global gas capability installed. And if it happens that there is a nuclear explosion, so we will be running the ATM forward simulation to see how the data will be propagating, and see when our station would potentially have detections related to this event. So the data that we are receiving and the uniqueness of this international monitoring system is not only used for the verification regime, but it can also be very valuable for scientific applications, and also for civil application, also for scientific applications. And I will also provide you with some examples in the next slide. I would like in that slide to highlight that there is the VDEC, the Virtual Data Exploitation Center, that provides scientists and researchers from many different disciplines and from around the globe with access to the IMS data to conduct research and publish new findings. And this access to VDEC is granted after signing zero-cost agreement. But this agreement is really needed because it contains legal requirements about the data confidentiality. So with the civil application, we refer to natural or man-made disasters that require the data to be available in nearly real time. And this data can assist in disaster management and to reduce the response effort time. And this led the CTBT to conclude formal tsunami agreements. And the data from the seismic and hydroacoustic stations, they are sent on real time to 20 tsunami warning centers in 19 states. Another example of the usage of the IMS data is what happened or the follow-up result of the Fukushima accident. And the IDC, this led to intensified cooperation between the CTBT and other relevant international organizations, such as the International Atomic Energy Agency in the framework of Interagency Committee on Radiological and Nuclear Emergencies. Also, it leads to a cooperation between the World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization. And the image on the top, or the animation on the top, it shows the radioactivity that was released, the detections and classification of the releases from this accident for in the time between the 12th of March and 13th of May. And this information was really valuable because it provides the reliable information about to the concerned populations. There are a variety of studies and applications for the different verification technologies. So this slide just shows an examples of the applications of radionuclide data added to its verification role. In this slide also I picked up an example. So there is one study that shows that the analysis of the beryllium isotope was able to be used to detect or to predict the seasonal monsoon about 30 days before the onset. For the seismic data, is also the same, added to its verification function. It can be used for different studies, especially also for studying the internal structure of the Earth, or as you have seen in the other slide, as in the context of the tsunami warning. The hydroacoustic, again, there are many studies that are going on, and you have also seen in the IMS presentation, like the different sounds of the ocean's population, and there is also a tragic application, but we. At the IDC, we managed to help the Argentinian authorities open a request to find out to help to find out the missing San Juan submarine, and the location that we provided, it was about 20 kilometers far from the location where this submarine was found, and it was detected by 2 stations that were 6,000 and almost 7,000 kilometers away from the location that we provided. The infrasound data, again, can be also used for various applications. And there is the very big event that happened in January, beginning of this year. And this event, the Honga Tonga volcanic eruption, that was detected by all our infrasound stations. And this is a huge event, and there are many scientific research that is going on to study this event, because you can see also here it was, the event was detected in the station. It was propagated around the globe many times, and you see also that the pattern is repeated because it was propagated from all directions. And with this unique event, I would like to conclude the presentation, and thank you very much for your attention. I think we still have a little bit time of question if there are any.
Hello. Hi. My question is, have you, with the IMS setup already, so have you detected any areas of suspicion, and will that mean that nothing can be done even if you are suspecting an area?
What do you mean by I mean, we are detecting a lot of events by our automatic processing, and then every single event gets reviewed by an analyst or lead analyst. And all these results of events that we are detecting, they are published and they are made accessible to the state parties. And if a state, so this is under our daily work, and if a state party is interested in getting more information or processing or getting more data, this happens under this special request. So we will be receiving a special request, and then we need to maybe add more data or reprocess it, and this is also will be made available. But the usual workflow that we are doing every day is this automatic processing and review of the event to make sure that we don't miss any detection from any station, that this event is real. And also we are detecting and as it was explained also from the IMS presentation, so we have specific frequency range that we are working on it. And this is what we are detecting. So if it's outside of our band, passband, or IMS passband, so we won't be, of course, detecting it. Does it answer the question?
Yes. So if you detect an area that is suspicious, at the moment you can only inform the member, the countries, and not do anything.
We don't, I mean, we get the data, we process the data, and we analyze it, and we provide the product. And even if it's suspicious or not, it's not our treaty role to say this is a suspicious event, this is a nuclear test, it's not our treaty role. So we provide the state signatories with the data, so raw data, and also the analyzed results. And it's their role to make this judgment and say, okay, this is a suspicious event or not. But we never do this assumption. There are many mechanisms in place. So we have the data is authenticated. I hope I'm using the right word. There is also, there are many security mechanisms that are implemented. So at the station level, for example, there is also some bits that will be set. For example, if the station is opened, I don't know the technical word, but there is a word that ops can also see it if there is potential of manipulation of the data. And the data is transmitted through the JCI to make sure that the security of the data. But there are also part of our section that is responsible of the security of the data. Not our section, our division, I'm sorry. And also there is, just to finish, there is also statistics. So in the operational status, we will also see information about if the data that is received from the station is authenticated data, non-authenticated data. So this is also the ops section will be seeing it or monitoring it on a daily basis to see what is the percentage of the authenticated data that we receive, what is the percentage of the not authenticated data that we receive.
Hello. I would like to know more a little bit about the VDECT that you have mentioned. Who have access to them? What are needed in order to have access to the VDEC? And also, what's the main difference between the SW portal compared to that one? Thank you. If you can elaborate on that.
I mean, I will say it, but maybe also I will check it again and then maybe pass the information. But the VDEC, the information about VDEC can be found on the ctbto.org website. There is also a registration form, and if I'm not mistaken, this needs to be done on a level of an institution. So the institution needs to sign this zero-cost contract with the CTBT to be able to get the data. Concerning the secure portal, it's again only the authorized users from the state signatories that have signed this SSA state signatory account that, so basically there is an account, there is a principal point of contact of this account, and there will be assigned authorized users, and those users will get an SSO account to be able to access the data from the security web portal, SWP. Thank you. Yes, please.
I'd like to ask if countries are using some of these technologies to also monitor climate change, and what are the technologies that are being used and how?
Oh, this is really, because I don't know, I'm not really very involved in the research, but I know that there are many, like they use the infrasound, they use the radionuclide. I think they also use all the technologies. And this is why we try always, not only for the verification data, but to offer all these possibilities through this VDEC and all the scientific community to address all this research. And also, I think one of the slides that I showed in radionuclide, so it's also studying the natural phenomena. So, and also, so what we provide the state signatories, it's not only the data. We provide the data, and we also provide many tools. Like, for example, this ATM, there is a tool that comes with this NDC in a box that they can use. There is also in the secure web portal many tools, so they are provided with the tools to reproduce also the results that we provide, but also to make their special studies. And also, there is also a question that was asked in the previous presentation. So, the tools that we provide can allow the state signatories to not only analyze IMS data, so if they have also offline data, they have their own network, they can also use this as an input to some of the tools and try to investigate and make more analysis. I think we can, so if there are no questions, thank you very much again for your attention and for your questions.
Dear participants, tomorrow we don't have any panels, but you most probably signed up for the SAM tours. Kindly check your emails that you indicated when you were signing up for the field trips and for the CTBT tours to check very important information with the details. Thank you. And on Thursday, we start as per the program.